Welcome to the MTD News of the Week. Hello, Jen.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's 89 on the 4th of March, 2022 in Beijing. It's evening in the US. It'll be the 3rd of March over there. As always, we're going to talk about the headlines and talk about the news and talk about things that Communist parties are saying. Of course, last week we covered the Ukraine situation and we gave a special on the weekend, of course, updating that about that too. So this episode today, we're first going to cover just some basic headlines, not related to Ukraine first, and then we're going to come back to Ukraine. So we're going to talk about, mention New Zealand is dealing with a huge surge in cases in Omicron or COVID cases. A January 6th committee, so a committee in the US investigating the January 6th Capitol Hill riot incident, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be talking about that. Some of the results have come out that is implicating Trump, potential criminal sort of investigation taking place there. Jen is going to give us a situation update on oil, or what's happening with oil and oil prices and oil production. And that's obviously been affected by Ukraine, the situation in Ukraine. Once we've discussed that, then we're going to come back to our Ukraine discussion and talk about Ukraine. So we're going to give you an update on the media in terms of things like RT and other news websites, things that have been reported and things that we got right. We predicted actually from ourselves. So things that we predicted, particularly about Snake Island and other things. I guess the information war is what we'll update you on, what's happening in terms of the information war. And then we'll go back to that map and give you the tactical analysis of what's happened so far in the last 5 days since we spoke to you on Sunday/Monday. So that's the plan for today. So let's just go straight to this January 6th thing then, Jen. So I'll get this up. So January 6th committee lays out potential criminal charges against Trump. So in a court filing, the panel said there was enough evidence to suggest that the former president might have engaged in a criminal conspiracy as he fought to remain in office. So Trump also spoke at CPAC, and a whole bunch of other people spoke at CPAC, the Congress, the Republican, meeting they have, which basically is their build up to their whoever's going to be their candidate. I didn't watch any of it, and I don't think many people did because of what's happened with the Ukraine situation. It's been completely eclipsed. There were some good sound bites. I think the best one was from Trump, was him saying, Russia did this when Bill Clinton was in power. Russia did this when Bush was in power. Russia did this when Obama was in power. When I was in power, Russia did nothing. So if I was in power, none of this would have happened, was the sort of his soundbite that he said. That was probably the only thing that I've seen come out of that scene.
When Bush was in power, it was Georgia.
Right, Georgia,
not the American state, the European
Georgia, the country, and then of course Ukraine.
And of course with Obama it was Crimea, and with Biden is not the entirety of Ukraine.
Yeah. I think Chechnya would have been Bill Clinton then, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so anyway,
Chechnya formerly belonged to Russia. Anyway,
Chechnya is in Russia, right?
Yeah. That's different.
Okay, so. So this is from the House Committee. So bear in mind, this is this is on Capitol Hill. This is, when you talk about Washington D.C. politics, it's a House Committee.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty partisan body as it is. But anyway, they said that they have enough evidence to conclude that former, Trump might have conspired to commit fraud and obstruction by misleading Americans about the outcome of the 2020 election and attempting to overturn the result. So now there's a court filing in a civil case in California. The committee's lawyers for the first time laid out their theory of a potential criminal case against the former president. They said they had accumulated evidence demonstrating that Trump, the conservative lawyer, and his other allies potentially be charged with criminal violations, including obstructing an official proceedings of Congress and a conspiracy to defraud the American people. So it's the beginning of the process, right? So we're talking about the beginning of a legal process here against Trump, a criminal, it seems, although it's his civil case, right? So it's a civil case, sorry. It's a civil case.
Well, Yeah, I do like to say the situation is, I mean, no matter what happens, first of all, it's going to be a constitutional crisis
Uh-huh.
for the United States. I would argue, in a way, no less than the January 6th event itself. Why? Well, because it's really about ruling class consensus. Because U.S. elections has always been full of fraud, both
Gerrymandering.
directions,
Hmm.
by both parties, by any candidate really. What holds it together, like the Bush versus Al Gore election, for example, is the consensus of the will of the ruling class to move in one direction,
Mhm.
regardless of if the technical procedure itself, which is easily scammable, right?
Mhm.
You have, the machines, you have the metadata stuff, you have legal fraud. We've seen like politicians on both parties locally changing election laws a few days before the election. We've seen that from both sides. It's just that right now, clearly, what brings this to light is because the RussiaGate Trump investigation is failing. As in the FBI, the more the FBI looked into it, they realized that they were deceived by MI6, which agent John, what's his name? Christopher, sorry, Christopher Steele. He was, supposed to be this Russian expert,
Mhm.
like this basically older James Bond guy in
Yeah, yeah.
Russia. But he's been getting all his sources from this basically con artist Igor Danchenko in Russia, who just like straight up made up claims.
Right.
He made up claims which were turning to MI6 report, which was filed to the FBI, and it only goes downhill from here. And who did he got his sources from? Well, the personal best friends of the Clinton couple.
Oh, okay. Right,
Hillary
right, right.
Clinton.
So ruling class.
So, like right now, the criminal investigation part of that is actually about to be turned around to no other than Hillary Clinton herself. And
Mm.
so, right now, like no matter these two investigations are very closely linked. No matter which way it turns out, odds are half the country simply won't accept it, and then let's just watch this implode on itself.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the process. Like I said, I think in a few weeks or months, whenever the next step comes along, we'll talk about it then to see what happens.
Yes.
I mean, they've handed in a bunch of evidence from state officials, from interviews that they've done from all sorts of characters. So let's just leave it at that. That there has been a civil case against Trump that says he defrauded the American people. So now this thing is going to court more than a year later. Okay. But yeah, let's move on to this oil situation you want to talk about. So yeah, obviously with...
Sure. Why do I want to talk about that? Because gas prices here in the city of Cincinnati has went off the roof. It is now $3.79 per gallon. Well, it used to be $2.79. It shot up a whole dollar in the span of like 2 weeks, so that's why I want to talk about that. Essentially, with again, this goes back to end of 2019, really. The November of 2019, the first crisis before COVID, the COVID equivalent in the oil industry was when OPEC, when Middle Eastern oil countries and Russia teamed up. Not teamed up, they partaked in a gas price war to drive down the price of gas so much that the United States, being the largest oil producer, actually were at a net loss of profit. Then we know COVID happened in 2020, right? Well, okay, it went global in 2020. As the pandemic went on, demand for oil, because demand for transportation went down, right? So demand for oil also went even further. So that led to the destruction of the oil industry, especially the American one. Because there was no money to be made to maintain it. Trump tried to salvage it with state funding, subsidies, But that was, of course, to no avail because to pull a capitalism, I guess, you cannot really go against the trend of the market, especially if you are a capitalist system that does not have centralized state power to be able to override such things. So, well, guess what happened? Well, today this happened. 2 weeks ago it happened. Leading up to that was a part that led to the logistics crisis, which is the oil tankers out in the international waters. All the supply lines nobody would buy the oil, and it is just rotting on the ocean. So now, because this is just how causality and dominoes work, we have the U.S. Oil infrastructure and supply line and logistics being completely destroyed, and so gas prices going way up. And the United States and its allies have agreed to release their strategic oil reserve of how many millions of tons again?
I don't know. The reserves. So the oil European reserves.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, you just said this.
60 million barrels of oil.
Right.
To try to provide more supplies onto the market so that the prices go down. Well, here is there's just a little problem. That's not enough, and also unsustainable because the oil reserve, any kind of reserve, is a finite stockpile. And you're dealing with something that is ongoing and continuous. So a finite stockpile is not going to solve it. And when they released the 60 million barrels, things stabilized a little in terms of prices. But now it's just after that ran out, it's going to keep going up. And so what we're seeing essentially is the U.S. has lost, first of all, due to COVID, its ability to produce and congregate and gather in any meaningful way. So that hurts that damages his military abilities. Secondly, there is it gets worse because right now oil is getting out of hand. So any kind of military operation requires logistics, or logistics requires transportation, which is around oil. And if oil goes out of hand, and if your state reserve is depleted, then that means you have no ability to conduct warfare. Period. Besides, maybe your few nuclear-powered vehicles, like submarines and ships and such. But then even those things, especially the carriers, it's not gunboat. It's based off of its planes. If its jets doesn't have fuel, then it's also kind of useless. So then I think that's really going to damage the strategic outlook of the United States and the West going into the future. It just is a huge factor that I think everyone should take into consideration when they try to analyze future situations for the rest of the year, maybe.
Yeah. So I think you said the price of gas or petrol, if you want to call it that, at the gas pump in Cincinnati was high. So according to USA Today and CBS as well as others, that $5 a gallon. So is that right? $5 a gallon. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm glad it isn't $5 over here. See, net loss.
Not yet. So it says will hit $5 in weeks. So there you go. Yeah, I think that's the main takeaway here, is that because of the conflict, the supply is restricted in a sense. Let's go on to then let's talk about Ukraine. I think it's kind of staring us in the face.
I was kind of leading up to it because
we wanted to discuss other stuff, but
because of this overall problem, the United States won't have the ability to intervene in Ukraine in any meaningful way either as time goes on.
Right. So we have to take some commentary, Jen, from our viewers. We've been told not to interrupt each other, so we'll try and stop cutting each other off.
Okay, yeah.
So okay, let's bear that one in mind. Let's talk about Ukraine. It's staring us in the face. So we're first going to go over the media situation, share some videos, talk about some of the stories that have come out over the last 5 days, and then we'll go to the map. Okay, so I think one of the big things that's staring me in the face is it's more of a passing point. There's nothing else to say apart from the fact. But Russia today, RT America has been shut down today, and the people are told to clear their desks out. They don't know if they'll come back, but they're certainly closed as of right now. In Europe, the EU banned RT and all of its subsidiaries, which includes Sputnik, a few days ago. I think that was 3 days ago. Ursula, the head of the EU there, she banned it. So you are restricting at least a big portion of the Russian perspective of this conflict. You're cut off. So now you only have predominantly Western sources and less. And to be honest, I've seen a lot of the coverage from Sky News, and it's very partisan. Very partisan. In fact, I know it's partisan because I mean, there is a memorial to the Holocaust in Kiev, and during the fighting, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, it was hit by a shell or something, and Sky News, and obviously that is terrible. That is a piece of history. That's it's a very important monument. And Sky News reported, the reporter said, it's very telling that Russia is coming in to do denazification, and one of the first targets they hit is a Holocaust memorial. And you're like, what? First target? I mean, this was 5 or 6 days into the war. There's been fighting all over the whole country. There's been many strikes on many things all over the country, and her to come out and say it was one of the first things they hit. I mean, you couldn't get more, just trying to get people to buy into the emotive stuff, into the emotional stuff.
Well, gosh, there is so much to talk about on that.
Yeah. No, sure.
That's basically like what you said is the whole point. Like the entire modus operandi of the entire Western kind of coverage of this whole event is exactly that. There's So let's mention that. I think we should talk about so RT is down, which is a pretty big thing. But I think we should now do a small victory lap for ourselves in our correct prediction. So on Monday, was it Monday or was it Friday? No, was it Friday? I can't remember. Anyway, one of our last broadcasts, either the first one or the second one, we reported the story about Snake Island. Was it Sunday? So yeah. So we reported Snake Island, this story about 13 guys, Ukrainian soldiers or border guards on Snake Island. And there's the video, Russian ship reports in and says, okay, hey, hand over your weapons. And then they say, fuck you. There was also reported as go to hell, but it wasn't. It was fuck you. But anyway, and then they were killed. That was the story. They were killed by the Russians. And, it was a massacre, basically. I'll show you the sort of, I haven't got the picture here. So the BBC reported that was reported all over the place. And already then RT was saying, no, look, here they are. These are the guys. They're alive. Here's pictures of them. Yeah. We already started saying, okay, this is an information operation. Information war is taking place. And lo and behold, even the BBC reported, okay, they're alive. So this massacre never happened. These guys were never killed. They're fine. Here they are. They're prisoners. Okay. So that we were correct in that. We had a prediction that was going to happen. We withheld judgment until the final whistle. But now I'm going to show you some other stuff though, which has been going around, and this is also to give ourselves some credit. We can show you this one here. So as we mentioned, 1 second, let's get this video. As we mentioned on our previous broadcast, the Russian vehicles that have been coming into Ukraine have a Z on them or a V, a white Z or a white V, to distinguish them from the Ukrainian vehicles because they look the same. And I said there's a very high chance that Z will now be placed or painted onto destroyed Ukrainian vehicles so that the impression that, this is a Russian casualty can be portrayed, so that the idea that the Russians are losing or the idea that this is costing Russia a lot can be spun. I was too traditional in my analysis of how I thought that. Stupidly, I was like, oh, you just painted on there or spray painted on there. No, you just use digital means. So I'll show you this now. This was shared on Ukrainian Twitter and all sorts of other places. 1 second.
So instead of using spray paint, they would use digital means, so just using a filter or something like that. So as you can see, this is old footage from 2014, and the same footage, they just put a Z on the burning vehicle. So to make it seem like it's coming from today or this week, and it's a Russian vehicle because it's got the Z on it. So that's one of those videos. I'll show you another one in a moment. But yeah, we were correct in assuming that, or guessing that that was going to happen, that you were going to have, information operations, false stuff happening. I'll show you another one now. Second, yeah. Okay, here we go. So this is another vehicle here. Okay, there's a truck, one of the big Euro trucks that they have, and there you go, clear Z on the new footage.
Right.
There you go. Just put it on digitally. I assume it's done digitally, yeah. Well, it is because the video is identical, so yeah. So that's it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right, and so I guess now is a good time to talk about how Ukraine claimed that they've been killing 1,000 Russian troops per day, every day, effectively, which is just completely insane. There's lots to be said. I mean, first of all, I want to say that, like, from a purely military perspective, if Russia truly wanted to pull a kind of Kosovo Yugoslavia equivalence, what Russia could have done is to just use artillery bombardments and aerial kind of bombardments all day, every day, without sending much ground troops. If you are going to send ground troops, send your like high-end kind of tanks. That would effectively lead to 0 Russian casualties, with tens of thousands of Ukrainian casualties. But they didn't choose to do that. Because I would say that this operation is far more political in nature than it is military. A few things immediately that can be immediately observed, right? So, for example, today the Chechen forces took the largest Ukrainian military base near Moldova. And they have mostly agreed to a ceasefire. The two sides. Essentially, what we're seeing right now is this very nasty situation where Ukraine is pulling in international criminals and mercenaries. I mean, according to like some of my friends in China, they're saying that Interpol is like working its butt off 24/7, 7 days a week these days because every single kind of out of the total 14,000 fighters, international fighters that Ukraine received, most of them have some sort of criminal human trafficking record on their back. And so the joke is that they on the flights to Ukraine to like the Polish-Ukrainian border right now, it's like a complete kind of nightmare of just God knows how much psychopaths and criminals are being shipped in. And that's those people, along with Western weaponry, are going to be the situation that the West has prepared for Russia to kind of create another hell on earth. And Zelensky is completely fine with that because he wants to preserve his own power. Sure. That is like, in a way, the worst case scenario if we truly think about this for a moment, right? Yeah. For as far as the Ukrainian people are concerned, because so we've received reports here and there of the Azov battalion using artillery and mechanized vehicles as like weapons of terror against the Ukrainian people itself, right? So I guess like a few weeks ago we talked about ISIS because they popped up in West Africa and East Africa simultaneously.
Yes.
Right, and talked about how even the Americans recognize that international fighters, volunteer fighters, have very little regard in regards for like the lives of local civilian, very low willingness to negotiate. They don't care about civilian suffering. Therefore, they are not there to fight for their homeland. They are there to keep the fight going till the end. And they don't care about collateral damage, so on and so forth. So everything that the West has said about ISIS and those quote-unquote international fighters can now be said about all the volunteers, all 14,000 of them, to Ukraine. And they are now being armed by NATO, essentially.
Yeah.
That's just not a good situation. And essentially what I see, and I'm going to make this prediction right here, a lot of comrades, including here at the MTT, agreed to this, which is Zelensky has basically pulled the South Korea tactic during the Korean War, which is call for a truce and negotiation anytime they are losing the fight, and then build up enough forces, and then when they feel like they can win again, they'll surprise attack, whilst their diplomats are still like in the middle of negotiation, and then when they start losing again, the cycle rinses and repeats. Like that is like the Russian military can sustain that, CSTO can sustain that, NATO loves that, but at what expense? Well, that is at the expense of the Ukrainian people. So the longer this fight goes on, the more we will see who truly doesn't give a fuck about peace, about human rights, and about livelihood. And I think it's going to lean towards the Ukrainian direction very fast.
And just to give you, just on the statistics, so the estimates are between 14,000, but Zelensky says 16,000. So it's somewhere between the two. Foreigners have volunteered to fight for Ukraine against Russia. Someone made the reference that this is in some ways kind of like the Spanish Civil War. I mean, we mentioned that in international brigades, except at the moment the international
this
brigades
time with Nazis.
Joining the Azov battalion. But I think that was before right now. So right now, I think these people are just joining the general Ukrainian resistance fighting forces, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to show two more videos. So these are just some of the, I guess, in all of this chaos and slaughter and terrible stuff that's going on in Ukraine, just some stuff that's happened, some videos that have come out. So here's people that have got a Molotov cocktail and are throwing at a Russian vehicle, and then they accidentally set their own vehicle on fire. So take a look here. Pretty ridiculous. This is why it's a bit dangerous to tell people to, if I can get weapons and go fight the Russian army in the streets. There you go. I believe they call it her Kerosene Kelly because she sets fire to herself. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. But there you go. That's there you go. Molotov cocktail. The one I'll show you now is this one. This one was on Sky News while they were broadcasting. This guy was standing at the back. So the Poroshenko, the ex-president, is standing giving a speech. His sort of Churchill moment, and he's got a line of soldiers and maybe a special forces soldier behind him. But the guy on the left certainly doesn't seem to be very professional in my opinion. 1 second, let me get some view. So I don't know if have you seen this before, Jen, or not? So there he is. Hold on. Oh shit. Here we go. There he is. Certainly doesn't seem to be. Is with his AK-74 and nice. His magazine drops.
Did I even plug your magazine in all the way? Either the gun is like in such terrible shape, or you didn't put it in all the way.
I assume he didn't put it in all the way. So he's there on international TV, supposed to be a show of force to the the world. Moves around and
okay, you know what? Like the American National Guards weren't even given magazines.
Yeah, for January 6th, right? Yeah. But it's pretty funny, pretty embarrassing that he has to get. Yes, Then he looks back at the camera. I think it was quite funny. But yeah, there you go. There's that guy. And one more thing then I think I've got to show you. Videos. Let's just take a look here. I've got that. No, sorry, that's it. It was going to show a video of some footage of Russian naval ships off the coast of somewhere. But to be honest, it's not. It's just a sea. There's nothing to see. You're not going to see much there. Okay. Yeah. Should we move on to the map and see what situation's right now?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go into that then. I think the only major change, because to be honest, there hasn't been a huge breakthrough from the Russian side, apart from surrounding key cities. So when we started last week, a week ago, Kharkov was already nearly surrounded back then in the first few days of the war. And they were already in that airfield, the Antonov airfield, when we spoke last week, when we started last week. So the only major changes, I'll show you on the map in a second, have been smaller cities. And then also an unusual, something we didn't predict, was this push to the left. So let's get the map up. 1 second. Okay, so starting from the south. So starting from the south again. So if you're looking from Crimea, this all was the same last week. So this push, the initial push, and then that swing to the right towards Mariupol and towards the DPR and LPR. That was all the same. That was what happened last week when we started, and on Sunday. What's interesting is that this place here called Kherson, this city has officially been taken. It's the only sort of the biggest city that's definitely fallen, and the Ukrainians have retreated from. And then there's been a follow-up push along this highway towards Mykolaiv, which is now where some fighting. So the Ukrainians pulled back to here, and that's on the river, on the Dnieper River, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it? 1 second. No, it's not the Dnieper River. It's a different river. But So, but the interesting thing is obviously that's a western push, which we didn't think was going to happen. So Odessa's down here. There has been that western.
Quick comment about Odessa. If Odessa ever gets taken, it's gonna be very quote unquote detrimental to your Westerners who are huge into prostitution and drugs and music festivals, because Odessa is one of those neo-Nazi cities where a lot of quote unquote music festivals gets held, and a lot of illegal activities happen, and Western colonizers and sexpats love to go to. So if Odessa falls to Russia, and if the FSB ever decides to clean that shit up, I'm sure all your Western people, in quotation marks, will be infuriated. And they will have a fun time. Raging on Reddit and Twitter. That's I made this call. If it happens, give us a like or something. I don't know.
I mean, it does seem, to be honest, if the Russians do want to push west, they do have the Transnistrian Strip here, which has got Russian bases in it.
And there's a whole army group there, remember?
Right. But I mean, I was speaking to someone who's in Odessa, and there's a lot of units here, a number of brigades. I think at least 4. There's brigades. There's a number of brigades on this. So if there's a fight for Odessa, it's going to be a pretty big fight. And and it also would be beach landing and stuff. So that hasn't happened though. So
beach landing will be difficult because they're not. Again, Russia's not taking the bombardment approach. Which, if we think back to, this is going to be interesting. I just want to make this comment. From the overall observation, it seems like what we can see as far as the Ukrainian forces go, it relies a lot on basically Western international kind of pressure. What that means in tactical terms is that there is a lot of troops to the east in Mariupol, right next to DPR and LPR. And then there is a lot of troops near Kiev. But as far as in the middle goes, and also like defending from Moldova goes, it's completely empty. That's the situation. I would say 3 to 4 days ago, but now it's changing because clearly they have realized that Odessa is up next, or at least in the conventional tactical sense, it would be up next. Or this could be a deception. Draw 4 brigades over there with relatively little cost, and then surprise attack somewhere else using the high amount of tactical mobility that the Russian forces have. So tactical mobility means the ability to move when threatened by enemy fire. It's not just about you having a Lamborghini and then driving at 200 miles an hour. That's not tactical mobility.
Right.
So this is going to be interesting. We'll keep everyone updated. Maybe next week.
You mean on Odessa, on the western front?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that is an unpredicted thing that we didn't see that this western push. Well, it wasn't the first priority. So I assume that either they met a lot of resistance here, which is why they didn't make the breakthrough. But I think both of these things are true. One second,
at
Jim.
Least according to Russian sources, the Azov battalion has and all their military hardware has mostly been captured or eliminated.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of sporadic kind of resistance. Because again, we have to understand that on a battlefield, anybody with a rifle or any kind of weapon, if you think back to Vietnam and Iraq, right, can be seen as a combatant. But then now again, how many guns did they had out last week?
34,000 or something like that, I believe is the number.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, it's almost unbelievable amount of potential combatants. Yeah. So then, are you really going to kill all of them with impunity? Though that's also not a thing that at least so far Russia doesn't seem to be into that kind of thing. So progress is going to be slow on those fronts. And so what I'm one thing that I am seeing with going back to the disinformation talk, PSYOP talk a bit, is that the Russian forces are being careful and reserved and not advancing very quickly for this reason. But the problem is you will just have Ukrainian and Western media basically saying, "Oh, that's because they suffered heavy casualties, 1,000 Russian troops dead, and they're not advancing, and it's a meat grinder." No, it's not. So far, it has not been a meat grinder for either side. It's as far as warfare goes, this is one of the more, I guess you can say, dignified fights that we've seen. Instead of the Stalingrad kind of approach, where I think just divisions, out tens of thousands of people stuck in a small block, with thousands of deaths.
So we did discuss this last week, and this is something we should probably mention right now, is that you've had major cities being surrounded. So Mariupol is now surrounded, and you had Kharkov and Ukraine. Kiev, and the Western news is trying to say that the bombardments are extremely heavy and willy-nilly, but this is already not true per se. I mean, there certainly is bombardment taking place in cities. There are targets being hit in cities. That's undeniable. However, if you consider up in the north here, that some cities were just completely avoided. So let's look at this place here, Khlukhiv, right up here. It's close to the border, but the Russian forces just drove entirely around it. You've also got this city here, which is also just completely avoided. Konator, I don't know. My Russian, my Cyrillic's not great. But that's also been completely avoided. So this drives completely around it. So this is not a sweep from right to left where they cover every city and take every city. Urban
so far,
centers
we really have not seen the two infamous Russian systems for truly siege warfare for blowing up structures: the TLS-1 MLRS, and I forgot what it's called, but it's a 200+ millimeter heavy, super heavy mortar system.
Yes,
that the Russians have. So far, we literally have not seen those weapon systems
Yeah.
firing.
Yeah.
But like, understand that in the Russian kind of current military doctrine, those are supposed to be the weapons against urban structures, weapon
Sure.
fortifications,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fact that we haven't seen like those surrounding cities just like
Yeah.
eating that amount of explosives every day and just being demolished into pieces.
Yeah. And also just the aerial bombardment. So people are hoping that they can try and describe this current operation as in the same words that they would say, like, look at was it Grozny in
Grozny,
Chechnya?
yeah.
Grozny, and then also in Aleppo, they'll say like they're going to do what they did in Aleppo to clear out, the insurgency and whatnot, to clear out ISIS. That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping that narrative is very important from the West, is that they can try and paint the Russians as brutal, carpet bombing, careless soldiers.
Also, I would say like majority of Russia's battle formations are reinforced battalions or battalion tactical groups. If you watch Western media, are not in Ukraine. They are on the kind of CSTO, Russian Belarusian border, guarding against the NATO, essentially. And basically, it's doing a good job. Russia. I believe it was yesterday. Putin announced that the Russian nuclear strategic forces are on high alert.
Yes.
And so that in turn. So according to like sources in China and their sources in the U.S. military, like the U.S. First Cavalry or American like airborne 82nd Air 101st
Airborne.
And U.S. First Marine Division, they were called on to like high alert battle readiness 6, which means like you need to be ready in 6 hours to be deployed.
Right. Yeah.
They were called on that around 24 hours ago and then were called off. Essentially, the speculation is that the Russian nuclear deterrence is working. There will not be American involvement.
Yes.
And the idea is that also they've set up the Ukrainian situation now in a way where American direct involvement wouldn't be worth it. There's no exploit to get out of it.
Right.
So there's no point mobilizing all those troops.
I have a quick comment on that one, Jen. So yes, the Russian deterrent has actually, there is that on that strategic level. The U.S. stopped or suspended a routine missile test that was supposed to take place this week. And because of the fact that the Russians are on high alert, the U.S. decided not to, which actually is good. That's a good thing. That shows that there is a degree of that, at least on the strategic level, Biden's administration aren't being so stupid to provoke, which is good. There's some restraint being held. Let's just go.
I want to mention something.
Map. What? Okay, quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
If we remember to the beginning of the show, Trump making his statement of "I am the only president who's a presidency where Russia didn't do anything." Right?
Yeah.
It's because essentially Trump believes in realism of direct kind of short-term cost effectiveness of just from a finance perspective. Don't waste money on doing this kind of stuff, and therefore Russia doesn't respond with this kind of actions. But every other president pretty much believes in like more direct imperialism at any cost necessary on behalf of the bankers.
Sure.
So that's why we see this essentially.
Okay. Let's go to this map. And so in terms of Mariupol, which I think I would say it's very likely that there will be a big effort to take Mariupol, and that will be handed over to the DPR or LPR in the negotiations when they happen. Hopefully, those negotiations open up again. And also bear in mind that, I don't want to talk about Minsk too and all that stuff right now, but on the ground, Mariupol is surrounded. Even Western media is reporting that it's surrounded, and there is shelling of targets, and fighting is still going on, but I don't think that they'll last for much longer. I think Mariupol will fall soon. If it's surrounded with, it's got the sea to the south here, they can't be resupplied.
I want to bring up maybe just a counterpoint here. Because so far, it's this kind of, tactically, if you are surrounded and if you cannot make a breakout, right, you are effectively neutralized in a sense, as far as the whole the whole
for the rest of the fight. Yes, yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is what we've been seeing is like this Russian reluctance to siege and assault cities, right? So then, like, for me, like, they might just resort to a complete encirclement and letting all the civilians out, and then just letting these places starve to death, or the troops starve of ammunition, not like starving the civilians. So far, we haven't seen that.
Okay.
The policy has always been very humane in terms of letting civilians evacuate and all that, especially out of cities, right? What we'll likely see is not a complete. Hi, James. What we will likely see is this. How do I say? They won't be like officially taken. Like, it won't be another Reichstag Berlin, where there will be a flag on the Capitol building. At the center of the city. What we will likely see is just effective neutralization, not extermination, just making neutral, making them non-effective, making Ukrainian the Nazi forces non-effective. And that's probably going to be all we're going to see. Maybe I'll be wrong. Who knows? But what we will definitely not see is like Berlin-style kind of.
Right. So I think we have a slight difference of opinion on that. Let's see how it goes. But I think we should mention something which is very important, because this is the key discussion right now, is what is the Russian approach to cities, right? So we've seen obviously Kherson taken, sort of conventional style taken city down here in the south. However, in the north, so there is fighting. So Mariupol surrounded, and the fighting continues, and we have a difference of opinion as to what's going to happen there. But I think what we can be certain about is that if you look at, like I said earlier, you've got the city Konator being completely avoided. So in general, all cities are not being taken. However, Kiev is very interesting. So Kharkov, the fighting goes back and forth. So when we spoke on Sunday/Monday, it felt like Kharkov had already been taken because they were doing advance to contact in the city. And then they were pushed back, apparently, it seems. But I think what seems to confuse everyone is that we seem to be being told that Russia's trying to take all of these cities. However, if we look at Kiev, this 40-mile convoy that everyone has been talking about. So everyone knows about the airports. We have Antonov Airport here, Gostomel Airport, which was taken in the first day. And has been fought over back and forth, which we already spoke about last episode. And then the next thing that came up was this 40-mile long convoy, armored convoy, that's sitting outside of Kiev. So it's a material fact that if the Russians wanted to take Kiev heavily and just throw everything at it, they could, and they would win, because 40 miles of armor. I don't know how many tanks there are the Kievans, the Ukrainians have, but
probably look at the footage and we can probably guess. But
well, I'll get it up now. What I want to get, the point I'm trying to make is that people said they've stalled, they've run out of fuel, and all this kind of stuff. I don't think this is accurate. It clearly is. It's a sign that the armor is staying there because it's either a show of force or it's kind of a. The plan is to surround
like a ready state where they're able to respond to.
Yeah. So I mean, and if the point was to try and take Kiev as soon as possible, you would deploy that 40 miles of armor. That's a lot of hardware, and you could achieve a lot. This either means that they don't plan on taking Kiev right now, or that they're showing restraint. They don't want to have civilian casualties or lots of civilian casualties.
Essentially, here is a general overall kind of observation / prediction, I will say, which is the fact that the more civilians evacuate out of Ukraine, no matter how they do it, no matter where they end up, taking refuge, and the more and more the kind of physical demographic population on the nation of Ukraine, the region, is being replaced by international criminals and mercenaries, the more Russia will be open to using armor and artillery and using open force. That's actually a sensible approach if we really think about it. And ironically, that would, if just you know what, I'm not gonna say it because these motherfuckers might assassinate me if I do say that.
But
well, no, because like these people dying there actually does make the world a safer place. I'm serious.
The Azov guys, the Azov, yeah, the Nazi guys. Yeah. I think if some Azov, I mean, the only downside is that it takes.
Not just the Azov, the international criminals that's traveling there. Yeah. It makes Interpol's life, international police lives easier. It makes any anti-counter-terrorist forces lives a lot easier. You know, like those are the kind of jobs that's like firefighters. We hope they never have to show up to work. You know, because if they do, something has gone wrong. You know?
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to find this. Let me get this footage of this convoy so we can just get some context for this. 1 second. Sorry, my browser's causing me trouble. I agree with your point, though, that, like I said last week, I don't have any sympathy. I don't think we've had a massive loss to the world because the Azov battalion is being destroyed. My sympathy doesn't go too far. No. People that want to use SS symbols on their, on their flashes and stuff. No. Like not too bothered if you don't, if you're not home for Christmas. Yeah. Let me take a look here. So we've got, let's just share this tab here. So, okay, you got that?
Maybe full screen. So.
We got to go here.
Oh.
1 second, hold on.
40 miles is like around 60 kilometers.
Yeah. So we'll just, so this is the thing, right? So the reporting is stalled and regrouping. But I mean, this convoy's been there for 3 or 4 days. So like, I don't think they're stalled. They're waiting.
Okay, so like very much like closed order. Like
you're not talking about
formation.
Yeah. So they're in a line. It's just a solid line. They're not spread. One thing that's certain that I've seen that I get from this imagery is
that is crazy.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
so,
gosh.
What I'd say though, Jen, is this shows that the Russians do appear to have air supremacy because if you can trucks,
exactly.
You can have 40 miles of trucks sat stationary for days. Probably the best target you've ever won. Look at that. Look at that. That's like there's no tactical spread. They aren't going to the trees. They aren't set up in wood blocks. They are literally in rows on the highway or on the road, whatever it is. So I mean that just says to me can you see this?
A whole brigade worth of are those all trucks?
Those are all trucks. So bear in mind, it's not even armor. So people are like, the tanks are. A lot of them is just.
No, that's just trucks. Those are just supply trucks. So oh my god, this is crazy. You know what?
Yeah. So I think this shows
these are all supply trucks. So if you have a whole essentially battalion worth of trucks, then how many troops are they supplying? You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it shows that there's air supremacy on the Russian side. And they've been stationary for days. So I'm trying to find some other images. I mean, there are tanks in there. It's not only trucks. There are armored stuff. And bear in mind, so this whole thing of 40 miles.
Protection, basically.
Yeah.
Have all of that with no defense. Right?
Yeah. But what was I going to say? Sorry, I've lost my thought.
For Dust James, Comrade Dust James' point, I would like to say that yes, whilst Russia's so the comment is made by our friend here is that Russia being able to defy the West gives opportunity for all socialists and oppressed nations to make real material gains. This should be viewed as a global class struggle. Whilst that is true, it also gives reactionary ambitious warlords of the world also a chance to be able to do that. Now, I have no doubt that the socialists will win given enough time. But it's still a kind of going back to actually, January 1st of last year of 2021. Our president Xi Jinping basically said that the world is entering an age of orderlessness and social Darwinism on a worldwide scale. And I would say that this is like a trigger for the manifestation of that. Essentially, okay, so I guess let's take a step. If you're okay with this, Richard, let's take a step back to kind of grand strategy for a moment. Ever since during the trade war, if people still remembers back to that, when America heavily, United States and the West heavily sanctioned Huawei, the Chinese phone company, right? And one of the things that was done is one, it banned Huawei from being able to purchase Western digital computer chips. And two, it banned Android from being able to use the Android OS system on your phone. Anything that's not an iPhone uses Android. Huawei was put into the position of being able, needing to, and then very rapidly being able to develop its own chips, its own supplies, and its own operation system called the Hongmeng OS. I forgot what the English name is. Excuse me.
Something.
So that is actually a very good symbol for a kind of where the 21st century is going. Very good analogy. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about a world of dual systems, because formerly it was just the West. There was a mono kind of system that no matter where you were from, you were forced to use because nobody else had anything better. Now, Chinese socialism, and essentially the non-NATO world, right? That's the non-Western world. So NATO plus Australia, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and in Asia we have Japan and South Korea, right? Everything except those countries are forming into economic cooperations, economic pacts, and is forming its own kind of world, essentially.
Yeah.
So, in that situation, when there is two centers of gravity of power, people and nations and factions and organizations must choose sides, eventually, at some point or another. Russia, as we have seen, as ever since 2014 and more so in 2016, has chosen to completely align with the Eastern and the Global South faction, where it strengthened economic ties with China, military cooperation with China. China and Russia together started, helping stuff like on projects across the world. Oh no!
Yeah. I was going to report on this. I was waiting for you to finish your point.
Okay. I'll be quick with this one. I promise. Helping countries like Venezuela, helping with regions like Pakistan, so on and so forth. And with a certain degree of solidarity with Palestine being against Israel, and so on and so forth. Essentially, this whole event, we can say now on week 2, that in Ukraine is a kind of the first big earthquake, I guess, that is caused by the kind of metaphorical tectonic shift between the two systems. And something like this was inevitable and bound to happen. If it didn't happen here, it would happen somewhere else.
Right. So just on that point, I'll throw in one word for that one, is that yes, because now Russia has been it's been pushed off of SWIFT, has been pushed out of the American or Anglo or imperialist financial system. You now have a whole bunch of people, millions of people that are now having to figure out how to purchase and do business without Apple Pay, without any SWIFT-related financial service. So, in a way, this has pushed the world towards de-imperializing the financial system and coming up with
exactly.
I do know that in terms of purchasing oil in terms of Russia to China, there was something, excuse me for my lack of clarity in this one, but that they were allowing for the first time to use RMB, so yuan, to purchase and exchange oil, which is a big break in terms of international oil purchases and whatnot. So this conflict has actually then, and will, I mean, that's only just happening now, this thing of SWIFT and Russia having to find alternatives. So you will have an alternative financial system benefit from this. So this actually takes some power out of the West's hands because it drives cryptocurrency usage, alternative financial systems, all this kind of stuff. But yes, we have to finish now. But I'm going to mention this thing that's just come up, which as we've been reporting, actually, this has happened. So there's a fire that's broken out in what's called
Zaporozhye, I think.
Yeah. So there's obviously a firefight taking place somewhere in the south of the country, next to the world's, is it Europe's biggest or the world's biggest? Europe's largest nuclear power plant. So a fire has broke out Friday morning at a complex in southern Ukraine that is home to Europe's largest nuclear power plant. So here's the footage here of what's going on. That is pretty much happening right now, which is obviously pretty concerning. It's a nuclear power plant. It's the biggest one.
Enough. Excuse my...
Yeah, there's a gunfight taking place there. So that's pretty... I don't know why, considering the restraint that's been applied for Chernobyl, why whoever's at fault here, I don't know who's at fault, who's deciding to have a gunfight at Europe's biggest power plant, nuclear power plant.
I mean, now priority number one is to evacuate all the civilians out of there. Like, holy fuck.
That needs to be dealt with. I mean, to be honest, I think that both sides will probably pull away and send in. Resources need to be dealt with. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully that doesn't, melt down or whatever. Let's hope that it calms down. We'll see what happens with that. But we can't really comment more than that. We just know that a fire is broken out at that nuclear power plant in south of Ukraine, which is the biggest one in Europe, which is pretty good.
That is a string of words that is never good to hear in any situation.
Biggest nuclear power plant on fire. It's not good. But with that, we have to finish. That is the end of our episode.
Yes.
So we'll be back next week. I don't think we're going to do an update on Ukraine special this weekend because I don't think anything major is going to happen. Mm-hmm. The corridor is open for refugees to now come out. There's been some negotiations there. Hopefully, we have some sort of resolution of this situation and the NATO question and these hostilities, a return to normalcy. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next week.
Bye-bye.